Welcome, Sacred Wild Women. This is Suzette Winona Summers, creator of the Journey Back to Your Sacred Wild Self. And I am on, and I'm going to ask that you bear with me. I'm going to add Amanda O'Brien. She is going to be our guest speaker today. If I can find her. Let's see. So it's just going to take a minute for me to set this up because I'm not finding her. Okay. Well. Okay, let's see. Oh, there she is. Okay. I'm going to bring Amanda on. Hey there. I see Elizabeth. Let's see. Amanda should be getting on any minute. Amanda's going to be talking about meditation and self-love, and it is connecting. Let's see. There she is. Hey, Amanda.
Hi. Hello.
So this is my friend, and she's also a meditation practitioner and meditation teacher. Whoop, and that was her plant. Okay. So I've known Amanda, I think, like about 13 years. She has a PhD in psychology. Like I said, she's a meditation practitioner and a teacher. She's taught at the college level psychology, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a mother, she's a wife, she's a creator, she's a goddess, she's amazing. And she's going to come on and share with us about meditation and self-love. So I'm just going to hand it to her.
Okay. Thanks, Suzette. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this group and to come and talk to your group. It looks amazing. I was just reading through a bunch of the posts and stuff, and it's just like, wow, amazing. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So yeah. So yeah, I've been a meditation teacher for about 5 years. I recently decided to move away from the academic world and focus 100% on my meditation teaching. So I'm now creating workshops and online classes and writing and just like devoting all of my time to it. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited that I'm like getting to do this. And yeah, so I've started creating these programs, and they're called meditation prescriptions. And the idea behind that is that our healthcare system unfortunately does not support a lot of holistic health, so, and preventative measures and that sort of thing. So when you go to the doctor and you say, like, I'm having trouble sleeping, they're going to give you probably a medical prescription and maybe not much else. So what I was thinking is that it would be cool to come up with meditation prescriptions for people that are based on specific things. So, you know, if you're trying to learn how to meditate, a lot of times there's so much information out there, and you might get just like overwhelmed by what style of meditation is right for me, or like what, you know, what do I need to be doing, or how many minutes do I need to meditate, how many times a week, blah, blah, blah. So what I wanted to do was to create sort of like really specific packages that have practices and has descriptions, and they're for particular issues. So the first one that I did was for sleep, because that's one of the biggest things that I hear from all my students, is that I really want help sleeping. And I've also heard from a lot of my students that meditation really helps them with sleep. So when I was teaching college, I was teaching meditation classes for my college students, and that 99% of them were like, oh, I'm sleeping better, or this is really helping me sleep. So I created, the first package I created was for sleep. And what I'm doing is teaching an in-person workshop, and then everyone that comes to the workshop has access to all the digital materials. So they can download the audio, they can download all the worksheets and things that we do, and work on them at home. The digital package is also just available for people to online if they want to just download it. and not come to the in-person class. But so some of the other topics that I'm exploring besides sleep are self-love, which is this month, anger, grief, anxiety, and recovery. So these are some really big topics, and there are things, again, that I felt like I've heard from people that have come to my class that they're either using meditation for those things, or they are interested in learning how meditation can help with those things. So each month I'll be teaching one, and I'll be adding those digital packages each month. So for February, we decided, it's appropriate. It's love. We have like Valentine's Day, and we have all of the, you see hearts everywhere. So I thought it would be fun to do a workshop on self-love, because that's been probably one of the biggest and most profound things that meditation has brought for me and for most of my students. It's almost like a cornerstone practice. So if you have that self-love component, it helps with like so many other things, right? So if let's say you're in recovery, that self-love component is absolutely critical. You have to learn how to forgive yourself. You have to learn how to, be self-compassionate, have compassion for yourself when you mess up, when you relapse or you're struggling. Being kind to yourself and being able to see that although you're flawed, human being, you still are absolutely perfect, exactly how you are, is so healing and so critical. So meditation can do that, because I think that when we are able to meditate, one of the main things that we do is we try to clear away the ego, and we try to see ourselves for our truth and who we truly are, which is perfect, right? So just absolutely perfect. If you imagine like a field of flowers, each one of those flowers is perfect. It's absolutely divinely, exactly where it should be, exactly what it should be. And people are exactly the same. So we are just like those flowers. We are absolutely perfect. We don't need anything. And really everything that we find in ourselves that's wrong with ourselves or that doesn't work is actually just a story that's been created by the ego and something that's holding us back. So, maybe it's a story that we were told when we were a kid, I can't do this, or I'm only good at this, or, being shamed for some aspect of yourself. And, or maybe it's just something that we've learned, through our lives, like, well, I tried to do that once and it didn't work, so I guess I'm not good at that. Or I guess that's not for me. So we have all of these limiting beliefs, and these are things that our ego creates in order to keep us safe and keep us in our comfort zone and keep us, from taking risks and all of that. But if we want to live a life that's like really full and really, in touch and in alignment with our heart, we have to learn how to clear those limiting beliefs away. We have to learn how to, root them out and then get rid of them. And so, yeah, I think meditation is an incredibly powerful tool to do that, to just go inward and really seek out, our true self.
Yeah. So as you're talking, and could you like speak into the ego a little bit more? Just I think that's such an interesting term, because I use that term a lot too, and I'm just interested in like how you define, like how can somebody determine whether they're coming from their ego or their like divine true self?
Yeah, so I like to think of it as like when we're a child, when we're little, maybe even a baby, we understand just inherently, like naturally, that perfection that I was talking about, that like infinite possibilities. But what happens is that the infinite is sort of terrifying to us as well, because it's like all of this unknown. And so there's a part of it, there's an aspect to our personality that comes in response. And it's the ego. And the ego is like, no, I have a name, I have a race, I have a gender, I have, all of these like constructs. And it's a way to separate us from that infinite possibility, and it's a way to keep us safe, but it's also kind of a way to limit who we potentially can be. So yeah,
a great
description. Yeah, so I think the ego, it serves a purpose, it's important, but it also holds us back too in a lot of ways. But yeah, so one of the things that I've studied a lot with meditation is the way of just sort of learning how to break down the ego and see it for what it is, which is and see it for what it is. It's just a story, that we're telling ourselves or that we've been told.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
My kitty's trying to get in the room too. He's like putting his pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how does that work? Like, as far as self-love and meditation, what does that look like when they're like married together? How does that?
Yeah. So I have a few different practices that I do around self-love and meditation. And probably the number one practice is just a compassion practice. So when at least in the Buddhist lineage, they talk about meditation, they talk about mindfulness and compassion are two wings of the same bird. So we have our mindfulness wing and we have our compassion wing. And a lot of times in in the media and in the world, we hear about mindfulness, and that's something that most people are familiar with. But we don't hear as much, I think, about the compassion aspect of meditation. And it's equally important. And really, it's not, I don't want to say there's no point in mindfulness without compassion, but really you can't really have one without the other, and you really need both. So compassion practice is a lot of times devoted towards extending compassion out to others. So you're meditating and you are wishing freedom from suffering to like all creatures or all beings everywhere. But we can also turn that inward and we can start extending compassion to ourselves, which a lot of times is harder. A lot of times people have a much easier time feeling compassion for others and a much harder time being compassionate towards themselves. So we can do compassion practices towards ourselves. And again, it's just a meditation practice. It's very, it's simple, but it's difficult. It's like a simple practice, but it can be very challenging for people. And then, forgiveness practices, and just those types of things. And then also I have some visualization techniques that I like to use around those limiting beliefs that I was talking about. So breaking down the ego and finding those stories and actually really rooting them out, and then using visualization to like say, throw them on a fire, imagining taking those thoughts and like really getting rid of them. Or, so you can use different guided visualizations to actually harness those thoughts and really clear your body and mind of them. And I think those are really great. Yeah.
Awesome. So is it okay? Are you ready for some questions from the group that some people have asked?
Yeah.
So one woman was asking, she said that, when she sits down to meditate, it's almost like she feels like she's going to have a panic attack, or she feels like she's going to jump out of her skin. It's really like challenging for her to sit quietly and be. Do you have any ideas or suggestions or type of meditation that might be more beneficial for her, or anything? Any insights?
I have a few things. So this it's not uncommon. A lot of people are intimidated by meditation or feel like, meditation's not for me because for that reason, because they feel like they can't sit still. So one thing that I like to tell people is that you can try walking meditation. So a walking meditation is just like seated meditation, except you're focusing on walking. You're not focusing on like looking around. You don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to look at the trees and the birds. You're really just focusing on the act of walking. So putting one foot in front of the other. And it's again, it's simple practice, but it's difficult because we walk all the time. And so as soon as you start walking, your mind's going to go. But you just keep bringing your focus back to your feet, back to your breath, and just walk. And you can walk back and forth inside your home. You can walk around in a circle. You don't have to be going somewhere. It's nice to do it outside, but again, it could be distracting. So, you know, you can do it indoors too. And pieces of advice for meditation is just outside of their comfort zone. Another thing that I could say, and this is a little bit more challenging, but when we meditate, we are actually wanting to cultivate acceptance of whatever is happening in the moment. That's mindfulness. So trying to sit with the panic and trying to sit with the anxiety and accept it rather than trying to change it is actually the practice. So if you're feeling discomfort, trying to shift your mindset from judging that discomfort or trying to change that discomfort into cultivating curiosity towards the discomfort, if that makes sense. So
I love that.
Yeah, so I think curiosity to me is like an incredible tool. So you can start to get really curious, like what does this panic feel like in my body? Can I locate it? Can I find where it is in the body? If it had a color, what color would it be? If it had a texture, what texture would it be? You know, like really feeling into it. And sitting with it. And that might be a very short, like 5 minutes. So you might just sit and say, I'm just going to sit with my anxiety for 5 minutes. But you might find that by removing the judgment and removing that feeling of like, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or this feeling is wrong, into a space of just being accepting of the feeling, what happens a lot of times is that shifts the whole feeling. So you might actually start to find that you can relax.
So
but yeah, it's all about
yourself.
yeah. No, I mean, that's the thing. Like we, you know, that's what we're cultivating when we meditate, is we're trying to stop those types of thoughts of saying like, I shouldn't be thinking right now, or like, why do I keep thinking about this? You know, why does this thought keep coming up? I'm really bad at this. You know, we want to just let go of all of that. Every meditation, you know, session is perfect in and of itself, whether you sit calmly for 20 minutes and have, you know, peaceful mind, or you sit for 5 minutes and you're like, the whole time. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. So there's not a good or bad meditation. It's all we're doing is we're sitting with our thoughts and we're trying to accept whatever is happening. So if I know you had one person that said that they felt like their world was really busy, that's something you could do too, is just try to sit and sort of be in acceptance of the busyness and of the chaos, and just say like, wow, you know, here I am. And then instead of, again, like trying to fight it and say like, oh, I really wish things weren't this way, you know, feeling into it and understanding that it's temporary. You know, there's going to be a point in your life when you don't have chaos. There was points in your life in the past when there wasn't chaos, and the chaos is what is now, you know. But it just is what it is. It's not good or bad. It's just reality. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. It's what it is. Yeah. And I love that. Like,
it is what it is.
That acceptance. You know, it is what it is. That's okay. Yeah. And that's good enough. It's perfect. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then someone said they didn't feel like they had a safe place to decompress. So I know for me, sometimes like I can even be in my car and meditate. You know what I mean? Like I create space sometimes. I don't know if you have any ideas or suggestions as far as that goes.
Yeah, so I will say this, meditation is a self-care practice, and it is one that is afforded to people who have the means and have, other things in place. So if you are, kind of at the bottom of the hierarchy, I don't know if you've heard of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's like you need food and shelter and water and safety, before you can start worrying about things like relationships or self-actualization or careers and all of that stuff. So you have to have that kind of foundation first before you can start, I think, moving into like spiritual practices. So yeah, that could be something that you might want to, really work on, that finding that safe space or creating safety for yourself first before you start to worry about, adding in these practices. But that said, if it's just like a temporary situation and you still want to try it, like you said, like the car is actually an awesome, it's an awesome place to meditate. I've meditated in my car a lot because you're enclosed, you are locked in, it can be like warm and cozy if it's really cold outside. So yeah, just do like a 5-minute meditation, in the parking lot, or like before you go to work or in your driveway. That might be an ideal place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I appreciate what you said about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the same time, it's almost like sometimes just to get that clarity, you know what I mean? Like because I feel like there have been times where I've been not, didn't have much, didn't have means, didn't have resources, but creating that space, that time for myself, even if it was only 5 minutes, maybe if it was in the woods or at the park, taking that for myself to create that sense of peace. It was almost like putting the mask on myself so I could go out and like get the work done or do what I needed to do. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that it's so important to, recognize that you need, um, when we talk about taking care of ourselves, we can think of it in terms of like our own health and our own, well-being, but it's true in order to take care of the other people around us and really show up for the work that we want to do. Yeah, we have to take care of ourselves, and it's not selfish.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I love that you said that. Somebody else asked about the difference between self-love and narcissism, and it's like sometimes, I kind of go back and forth. You said it's not selfish. Sometimes I'm like, it's okay to be selfish. You know what I mean? Like I don't have a problem with that word so much, but then somebody asked about self-love and narcissism, and I don't know. What do you think about that? How do you differentiate?
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say, just from a psychological standpoint, narcissists are actually full of shame. So they are people who have incredibly low self-esteem. So if someone is truly confident and truly like at peace with who they are and accepting of themselves, they're not narcissistic. So again, I think that speaks to like a story that someone has been told. And but I was told that too when I was growing up, that like if you really are like, hey, look at me, like I'm awesome, that you should be ashamed of that, and you should like, tone it down, be quiet, take up less space, let other people talk, and that kind of thing. And yeah, so that gets shamed out of us. And I mean, if you think about, again, like children and their self-confidence is so beautiful, and it's not narcissistic, it's just natural, it's great. And so you can of course be kind to other people while being kind to yourself. You do not have to be self-sacrificing and unkind to yourself in order to be kind to other people.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, you said something and I was like, oh yeah. So many of us have been like impregnated with that story, of like it's selfish, or um, it's not trying to think of yourself, or, you know, shaming that out of us, that self-care and that
Yeah.
self-love. And it's so awesome because so many of us are like collectively choosing to help shift that story, you know?
Yeah.
So I think as we support each other in claiming our love for ourselves and
Hmm.
teaching each other how to do that and claiming that space and taking up that space and having our voices be heard, it empowers others to do the same. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's actually, instead of being selfish, it's actually um, loving the world, because we're giving other people permission to love themselves in a
Yeah.
implicit way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, when you show up for yourself, you you're setting a wonderful example, yeah, for the
Mhm.
people in your lives, and for especially like if you have kids, you know, showing them that you love yourself and how to take care of yourself. I mean, you're setting an example for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah, it is. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Do you have anything else to share, or anything else you feel compelled to? Oh, will you please share your professional page? I have your website up there.
Yeah.
What is the best way to contact you if somebody wants to contact you about the
Yeah,
idea?
so email is always great. And I also, you know, here on Facebook, like you could totally message me on Facebook too. Yeah,
Okay.
if you have any interest. And if any people in your group, again, if they're like not in town, because I do teach a lot of classes here in Louisville, but if there's
Mm-hmm.
people in the group that are not local, I have a lot of online materials, and I have, like I said, I'm creating these online courses. So I'm excited to be starting work, you know, more virtual work and working with people
Yay.
outside of our physical sphere. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So check out our website, everybody. And I think it's I have it in there so you can click on it, but Amanda O'Brien is it
Wellness.
wellness.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Awesome. And she's on Facebook as Amanda Moon Panda, or
Yeah.
Amanda O'Brien is her professional page. So I think I shared it in the link, but we'll make sure all of her contact information is up and available for everybody. Thank you
Yay.
so much for sharing.